Hi, I'm Lizzie Maddox, an engineer turned homeschool mom to 3 little boys, and I like to talk about the nitty-gritty of homeschooling. Today, the nitty-gritty I'm getting into is the nitty-gritty of lesson planning. I'm actually recording 3 different videos about lesson planning. This first video that you're watching, I'll go over what you need to do to plan out your school year, some decisions you'll have to make, along with some thoughts on choosing a lesson planner. The next video, I'll go into some pre-planning that you'll need to do before you can actually plan out your lessons, going over subjects and what subjects you choose and kind of how to set that up. And then the third video will be a plan with me video where you'll see me planning out a few of the curriculum choices that we've made and how that looks in my lesson planner. Now, the lesson planner that I'm using for all of this is Homeschool Planet that you see here in front of you. It's the planner that I've been using since I started homeschooling 5 years ago. So I am comfortable with it. You know, it's not perfect, but I've become accustomed to how it works, and it does what I need it to do. And it fit the needs that I had for a planner. I am an affiliate for Homeschool Planet, so I'll have an affiliate link down below if you choose to use it. Just to give you a quick overview, we'll do this. Let's click on this Try Now link, and you'll see that you can try it out for free for 30 days if you want to try it out, since I'm going to be using it to go over lesson planning. And you also get a free lesson plan. There's a lesson plan marketplace, which probably saves a lot of time for a lot of people if you're using curriculum that's where they have a lesson plan for it in their marketplace. I've never used them, so I can't really speak to that. I may have to investigate it, but I like creating my own lesson plans, and I want them to look the way I want them to look. So I haven't used it, but apparently you get a free lesson plan if you do this trial. And then here's how much it is annually and monthly. So you can do that if you choose. There are other lesson planners. So let's talk about lesson planners before we go further. You're going to want to know up front how you plan to track your lessons. You can go very minimalistic and just have a notebook. A lot of people do that. They have a notebook and they write down what needs to be done each day. I think that will depend on how many kids you have and how much things change, and how much writing you want to do. If your kids are old enough, they can write out. You can have a general lesson plan, like you need to do reading, writing, arithmetic every day, that kind of thing. And then they write down what they covered. So there are some minimalistic ways that you can go about that. Also depends on how you want to store it and what's required of you from your local state. Be sure you know your local homeschool laws and what's required of you legally to homeschool in your state. That way you make sure you keep track of everything that you keep track of, like if you need to keep attendance, if you need to school a certain number of days in the year, if you need a certain number of hours, if you need certain subjects that you cover each year, you want to make sure that you track all that, so that if you have a portfolio that you need to present to somebody, you want to make sure you track all of that. So however you choose to lesson plan, whether it's a notebook or another way, be sure that you have all of that information covered in it. So you can do a notebook, you can do a paper planner. There are a lot of paper planners out there. I know that Erica at Confessions of a Homeschooler, on her website, in her store, she has planners that you can purchase and PDFs that I believe they're PDFs, and then you just can download them and print them. So that's a nice option from another homeschool mom. There's the Well Planned Gal, I believe. I think you can purchase that, like a physical planner from them, from her website, which I've never done, but I took a peek at it, and it looks like you can purchase it pre-printed if you don't want to deal with all that. Or you could just use whatever your favorite planner is, as long as you have room for each of your kids. You're going to want to make sure you have room for each of. So if you have 4 kids, in school that you need to keep track of what they're covering. You're going to want room for all that. So I don't know if a regular planner is going to work for you in that way. I would definitely try to find a homeschool planner to do that. If you're like me and prefer digital, there's software and some websites like Homeschool Planet that you can use. There's Homeschool Panda. I know they used to be free. I'm not sure if it still is, but that's another homeschool mom created that. So that might be a nice option for you. There's, I think, Homeschool Tracker. I think that's what it's called. If I find it, I'll put a link down below. So that's another digital option. For me, what I was looking for in a planner was, first of all, I knew I wanted it to be digital. At first, I wanted the paper planner because I do enjoy having a paper planner. But I realized that if kids were sick, if I was writing out what we're going to be covering each day, because I'm a planner, I like to plan, and I like all that written out, and I want to make sure I have all the information I need. And if I was going to be writing that out each day, if someone was sick or we took an unexpected day off, like this past year, we actually took an unexpected 2 weeks off because of some traveling we did, then if I had to move things or be erasing and changing things up, that would drive me crazy, and I just didn't want to deal with that. I also wanted to be able to plan more quickly. I wanted to plan a year in advance, and with a digital planner with the tools that they have integrated in them, you can, just with a few clicks, especially if your lesson plan follows a certain pattern, every week or every month, you can just with a few clicks say, start this class this day, end it this day, here's some of the basic information, and boom, it's there for the year, instead of having to write it out. So I knew that's something I wanted. If I were using a paper planner, I probably wouldn't plan for the year in advance. I'd probably just do a week or a month in advance. And I really didn't want to tie myself down to like every week or every month having to set aside a day to write out all the lesson plans. I'd rather just have something there for me already and then adjust it. Changing something is easier than creating it from scratch. So those were reasons I wanted a digital planner. And then as far as online, you can do software or you can do something that's online. I knew I wanted something that I can access from different devices. So like right now, you see in front of you, Homeschool Planet's on my desktop. I can access it from my laptop, from my phone, from my iPad. I have a son who I've started giving him access to it so he can mark off the work that he's done, so I don't have to do that for him. And gives him some independence that way. So he can access it from his laptop and also from his little phone that he uses for schoolwork. So I like the flexibility of that. So think about that when you're deciding what kind of planner you want to use. First of all, do you want paper or digital? If you're a paper girl, then that's what, forget everything else. Just stick with that. Stick with what you think is going to work for you. If you're like me and you like everything online, then investigate the different digital planners available to you. Think about, do you want to have access to it offline or not offline necessarily, but do you want access to it on different devices and not just a piece of software on one computer? So think about all that. Regardless of what you choose, I think these videos will help you because while I'm using Homeschool Planet in my explanation of how I do lesson planning, many of the principles you can still apply no matter whether you do paper, digital, another, whatever you do, a notebook, a real bona fide paper planner, whatever you choose, a lot of these principles will still work for you and will help you to think through what you need to do to plan out your year and plan out your lessons. All right, so we've talked about all that. You've seen how much it costs if you want to try this out, and why not do it for free here? All right, so let's go ahead and go to Homeschool Planet. Before I get into planning out your year, let me give you a quick overview of how Homeschool Planet works so that you kind of know the lay of the land. All right, so you see here I have it set up for a calendar view. There's different views that you can have. You can do the planner view, where things is basically just a list of schoolwork for each day. So this is next school year. You see, this is October. I'm going to change it to our first day of school right here. So you see here, first day of school, and I'll show you how that shows up. See, calendar view, planner view. This is my favorite view, the calendar view, because while there's not a whole lot of schoolwork in here right now, even when everything's in here, I have it on one page, and I can just scroll down and see what needs to be, what we're covering, not just for that day, for that whole week. So I find that really nice. I've learned to populate, not get real wordy for each lesson, so that, because if you do, if you put all the information in these, then that'll get lengthy. So I've learned not to do that. I also like that I can print this out. So, for example, I keep it on calendar view, and I can choose, let's say, my youngest, and just see his schoolwork, and then I go to print. You could do economy print, which is a black and white or color print. And this is showing up because I went to print before and then I canceled out. I don't know why it does this. This is one of those things that bugs me, but if you just hit print, it'll show up. And see, I can print out on one page. Now this always has one of two here, so I'd say just print the first page, and then I can go print it. And even here I could do black and white, so I can just go print it. Now I do this every week. For each of my kids, I choose each child, I print out their schoolwork, and then, so for my younger two, I put them on clipboards, what's printed out on a clipboard next to their work boxes, so I know how to fill the work boxes. And my oldest, before I gave him access to Homeschool Planet, he would use this to mark things off as he finished, so he knew he could look at the week and see we don't have schoolwork, what's going on Friday, why are we taking Friday off, or he'll say, I have a scout meeting. So he's learning how to use a planner and how helpful that is for him. So, and he really likes that. You can even also mark off. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but mark off. So if I don't want to show everything here, let's say you have a group assignment and you don't really need to show it in here, and you want to save some ink, you can mark that off. So let me clear this out. Okay, you can see it by day, by week, by month. That when you have all the schoolwork is super busy, this isn't helpful at all, I don't think. So I always do the week. Calendar view, week. All right, so then you want to set up your profiles for everyone. So you're going to have a profile, of course, and then you're going to want one for each of your kids, whoever you're scheduling work for. I also have my husband here in case he ever needed it for some reason, but he doesn't really use it. But I actually put him in here because I might mark something that he's doing just so I know. Like if he's taking a day off or if he's traveling, something's going on with him, I can put him in here. All right, so let's look at one of these profiles. These are really old pictures, like this picture of my oldest. That was his kindergarten picture, and he's 11 now. But it's cute. He'll always be a baby in my heart. All right, so you can go to their profile. You can put their little picture here. You see here. Oh, so cute. Why I'm showing you this is because as far as lesson planning goes, this color is going to come, is useful for me. I color code my kids, if you may have heard me say that before, but I color code like their school supplies and even water bottles, things like that, so that like from across the room we can all see who something belongs to. Their clipboards, I put washi tape around their pencils, so we know like who left that pencil there. There's no arguing about whose pencil that is, and there's no arguing over supplies. Those are my scissors. We know whose scissors they are because they're color coded. So I use their colors here in Homeschool Planet. And if you see right here, so anything with that blue line on top, up top, and I'll show you how to do that. If not this video, then the next video. So anything with that blue line up top, that's his schoolwork. So I can just look to see, I can just scroll down and look for like all of my little one's schoolwork. It's just really easy to identify that way. So I like using that. So I use like he's blue and my little one is red and my oldest is green. So you'll also see here, another thing that's useful here is this email address. You can use it for all these little pop-ups. You can use it to send reports. That's not how I use it. For my oldest, I do have an email address that we created for him just for this kind of thing. He doesn't get email, but it's just for logging in different things. And then if you want them to be able to log in and mark their own work, especially with an older child, then you can just click on this allow, your child to log in. You click on, see, I just hovered over this Y and it shows me this video that you can watch, which is really nice, really helpful. And then you can even give them a password and then mark what they're able to do. So my oldest, I have this set up for him, and he can go and he can see Homeschool Planet. He sees just his stuff, and he can mark his stuff as done or not. He can't mess with everything else. So that's really nice. We're trying that out this coming up year for my oldest to give him a little more experience when it comes to being independent and planning things out. Right now we're in the period of modeling, planning, and then over time he'll be more involved in actually making the plans and doing lesson planning, and so that by the time he goes off to college, he'll have a lot of experience with all that. He won't start college not knowing what to do when it comes to planning out his work. All right, so you see here I don't have times marked for any of these. You can, we'll talk about this probably the third video, but we'll talk about it more. I'll show you more about that, but you can give times for all of each class. I don't do that. I don't recommend you do that either. I find it much more useful just to have a routine. So have a routine for your day that you glide through gracefully and naturally, something that works for your family. And then you won't need to have a time for everything. And some subjects are going to take longer than others, and you don't want to give yourself that stress or your kids that stress. It's like, oh my gosh, it's 9:30, I'm supposed to be doing handwriting and I'm still working on math. You don't want to give yourself that stress. So I wouldn't recommend it. So you can move these around, and this is another place where Homeschool Planet's not perfect. It gets a little hinky sometimes, but what I do is I order my kids' schoolwork by age. So my oldest or my youngest is first, and then my middle son, and then my oldest. So see, this is out of order, and so I try to move it, and sometimes it works out better than others. But okay, I was finally able to move it, and then I try to order it in here by when I want them to do that. So usually I have them do their morning work first. And then as it goes on further on down the line, the stuff up here would be stuff that he might do independently, and then toward the end, toward the bottom of each child's list would be things that they work with me on, or more intensive teacher involvement, parent involvement is required. So then, my oldest, he does Bible first usually, and then morning work. Might switch that around. I don't know, but he's going to be in 6th grade, so he can decide when he wants to do those things. I just kind of give him some guidance, and he'll make those decisions. You'll also see I have things like laundry in here, so and a to-do list for myself to remind me to do certain things. So you can use it to plan your whole lives. I don't do that. I have a paper planner actually that I use for a lot of things. But since I look at this several times a day throughout the day, I do try to put important things in here, and things like appointments, because I know that that's going to affect my school day. I do have times for those, like our house cleaning, and it's every other Friday, sometime in the afternoon, but I know that by around lunchtime We want to be wrapped up with our schoolwork. We want to have gotten ready for our clean service, which I'm so grateful for. The kids have cleaned things up and taken sheets off beds and all that. So I know that's going to affect our day. So that's important for me to put there. So that's a general overview of Homeschool Planet. You have some widgets here as well. I know that some people are concerned about whether a resource is secular or religious. And I do have this Bible verse here. If you don't want a Bible verse, you just exit. You can get rid of it. I actually added this here. So you see, I have widgets for the Bible verse widget, the daily quote widget, and a to-do list widget. The to-do list is nice if you want to keep track of some things because you can create your own list. Excuse me. So, for example, if you have a timeline that you update on Fridays, then during the week you might want to have a timeline list, and then you can enter people, events that you cover during the week in your science or reading or history or whatever. And then that way, when you work on your timeline, these are the things we want to add to the timeline. I've also used a list like this for spelling words. If I had a spelling words list, and if I saw, I did this for my oldest son, if I saw that there was a word that he was misspelling that he needed some work on, then I would add that to this, so that when it came time to give him new spelling words, I would add that word to his list of words to practice. So if you use a paper planner, I would definitely recommend having a spot somewhere in your planner for this kind of thing that you refer to, and that's in front of your face regularly. I don't use this so much anymore, but I did use it extensively in the past, and I may again in the future. So you can change these widgets. There's a weather widget. There's shopping list widget, reading list. So you can add widgets, and there's room to have more widgets down here, or you can just not choose not to use certain things. So if you're wanting everything secular, then you don't need to use the Bible verse widget, and voila, you've made Homeschool Planet secular for you. So just wanted to point that out. All right, so now let's jump into decisions you have to make for setting up your school year before you can do your lesson planning. I'm going to go here to settings and school year and vacations. So for Homeschool Planet, if you have a paper planner, then you're just going to have that in front of you. But for Homeschool Planet, in this section, you can do add another school year, and it'll add a whole new section like this and change this school year. So I'm going to go ahead. I have a school year set up already for next school year. If I add another school year, look, it did it for the year after. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay, did it get rid of? No, it didn't. Delete. Yes. All right. So this is for our next school year. And if you notice in the last one, it marks off. You can choose what class days you want during the school year, and it puts a check mark on all of those. And if you want a day not to be a school day, then you just put an X on it. And you want to do all that for this right here. Super handy. It shows you how many school days you have listed here, how many based on your start date and end date. If your state requires you to keep track of how many days of school you have, well, there you go. There's an easy way to do that without having to go through and count. You can choose what class days you want. If you're part of a co-op, for example, and let's say your co-op meets on Tuesdays, well then you're probably not going to do any schoolwork on Tuesdays, any of this schoolwork on Tuesday. So if you want, you can just X that off. Or when you create your lessons, you can mark Tuesday off on all of them, and we'll get more into that in the third video. But you can mark Tuesday off on all your subjects so that you don't cover them, and then on Tuesdays you just have a co-op class. That way it counts as a school day, and it counts as your overall in your overall school day count. You can change your first and your last day of school. So let's talk about that. For first and last day of school, how are you going to decide when your first day of school is and what your last day of school is? Well, there's a few different ways of doing that. One popular way is to go with the first and last day of school of the local school district. This is especially popular if your kids have lots of friends who go to the local public school, and that way you keep them synchronized with their friends. Keep your kids synchronized with your calendar, synchronized with your kids' friends' calendars. So if you use the school district's first and last day of school, and also excuse me, and also any days off that they have off, that the school district has off, well, then your kids will know that if they have a day off, then their friends, may also have a day off and can get together those days and all. Another way to do it is just to use the calendar year. Your academic year is your calendar year. For us, we do year-round schooling. So I kind of do a mashup. Our first day of school is usually around the third week of August because that's what locally the school districts around us typically do around that day. I don't stick with the exact day that our local school district does, but I kind of keep it in the ballpark. And then our last day of school, so see, you change it here. You could change your first day of school, and then for here, last day of school. Our last day of school, whoops, let me just go back, it was already there, is usually the last Friday in July, because then we have several, instead of having a long summer break, I choose to have several breaks during the school year. There's a lot of reasons for doing that. I'm not the only person that does year-round schooling. A lot of people do. There's the idea that the summer slide is a real thing, and the way I have it set up, my kids usually get about 3 weeks off between school years, and so it's just 3 weeks. There's not a whole lot of time to forget a lot of things. For me, the reason I started doing it was because I found that my kids were pretty demanding about wanting me to entertain them during the summer, and it was hard. It's hard to, when you've gone from having structured days to go to days that aren't as structured. And there's things you can do to make it more structured, and it's nice if you do travel during the summer and have a lot of out activities during the summer, outside of your home. Then having the summer off is the way to go, but our family wasn't like that. So it was hard to add some structure in. And I thought, well, I already had structure with school. Why not just continue some of that learning and maybe have our summers be lighter schoolwork, but not as heavy, but at least we still have some structure to our days. Another reason is because during the summer, I live in Texas, and it is hot. It's hot in the summer, like really hot in the summer. So we're not outside a lot during the summer, except when we're in the pool. That's part of the reason we bought the house we're in now, so that we could spend some time in the pool during the summer. So that helps a lot. But anyway, so kids aren't just out running around a lot during the summer. They're going to want to be inside a lot unless we go somewhere. And so I needed to have some structure during the days in the summer. And another really important reason I chose to do this year-round schooling was to give us some flexibility during the school year. And there are times, I can remember when it was 1 October, where somebody was sick the entire month of October. And then when everybody finished getting sick, it kind of rotated. When everybody finished getting sick, then it went back around to the first person again. They got re-sick. So it was awful. It was a rough month. Well, if you're a homeschool mom of kids who are sick a lot during the night, high fevers, maybe they're throwing up, a lot of things going on, you're having to be up with them, right? You don't get a lot of sleep as mom because you're worried, because you have to take care of them, and you're cleaning up messes. not a whole lot of sleep is going on. And if you're not getting a lot of sleep at night, then you're not going to be able to teach during the day, and like you need very few responsibilities during the day. So if we're having to take a lot of days off, let's say because kids get sick, or maybe you have an unexpected trip. This past school year, one of my sisters got engaged, excuse me, which was awesome. And then she also had a destination wedding. So we went to Puerto Rico for a week, and then I added another week, like a few days before and a few days after, to prepare and to recover from the trip. So there you go. We had 2 weeks unexpectedly that we completely took off from school. And, I could have made it educational, but I didn't want to. Like, we were traveling. That's stressful enough with kids. Since we schooled throughout the year, I didn't have the stress of not completing, like not meeting our goals for the year. Like, I don't worry too much about completing curriculum because I know we can just roll right into it the next school year. But I still have some goals that I kind of want to stick to. If you're in a state that requires a certain number of days to school, so you may want to consider doing a year-round schooling to give you some flexibility. Even if you're not traveling, even if kids aren't getting sick, but you just realize we need some time off, or like in our state, if there was a lot of time I would be taking off, it would be in the autumn or in the spring when the weather's actually nice, not during the summer. So that gives the flexibility to do that. I know if other states, winters are harsh, and when summer comes along, you want to be outside. So yeah, you might want to take that time off. But for us, that's not our situation. There are other times of the year, so that gives us the flexibility to do different things during the school year. So that's why I do that. So you'll need to make a decision about how to manage your year. You can change it. Like when my first year of homeschooling, I wasn't planning on doing year-round schooling. I ended up switching to that when that first summer came along because my kids were not, they were wanting things to do, and we needed structure in our days. So you can change things up. What you do one year, you don't have to do the next year. There may be a time come along that we switch away from year-round schooling and have a month or two off during the summer. So just try to make an intelligent decision for this first year. After you've decided what your first and last day of school are, then you'll want to think about days off during the school year, and just go ahead and plan for that up front if you can. For us, like you see this X here, that is a birthday. So we take birthdays off if they fall during the week because we do special stuff for the birthday and we just want to make it special, right? So we take birthdays off. There may be holidays, so let's look at November. For November, so here's, I was going to say Thanksgiving. Here's Thanksgiving, and we take off Thanksgiving and then Wednesday and Friday before and after. So I just go ahead and mark those off. And then I left the Monday and Tuesday as school days, but I may change that, decide to take those days off. Or I may not. We may do like some Thanksgiving-centric activities for schoolwork those days. And then we have like Christmas. We usually do a couple of weeks, and then maybe even an extra day or two depending on how the New Year's falls out. In this case, it falls on this Friday, New Year's Day, so we're probably just going to take those 2 days. Or, if my husband has another, that's happened in the past where he's had an extra day off, so I'll just X that out and during the school year and continue on with our lives. I don't stress about it. Again, this is just a plan. It's much easier to have a plan to change than to have to create a new plan every day or week or month. So I try to do as much planning as I can up front, and then that way during the school year I'm changing the plan and not creating over and over again a plan. All right, so if you're not using a digital planner like I am, then you'll just want to, and I've even done this with the digital planner when I was first starting homeschooling. I do like to do a lot of things on paper, so I would print out a calendar for the year, just on one page, and I would mark days on here and think, okay, so what days would I want to take off? For us, my husband's a financial advisor, and he gets, he doesn't work when the market's closed, so there's other days that sometimes I'll mark off because he's got the day off from work, and so I'll mark them off so that we can do something together as a family that day. So that's something to think about. So we talked about, you want to decide your first and last day of school, thereabout, in general, which leads into how you're going to plan out your school year, how you're going to do your yearly planning. Are you doing an academic year, or are you doing year round? What are you going to do there? And then we talked about marking off holidays, special days, travel days, any event that you have. You want to mark those off. Now, if you'll notice on my calendar here, can I move this? All right, I have a lot more days off. So like I have this birthday, like I pointed out before, and then I have this week off, and you go further on, that week off. The reason I do that is because I do something called Sabbath schooling. And that's where you do several weeks of work, and then you take a week off. That's why we're able to do a year-round school year, because there's lots of breaks during the year. So typically with Sabbath schooling, it's 6 weeks of schoolwork and then 1 week off. I do it a little bit different. I found the reason I decided to do this is because I don't want to burn out, and I found that by the time we get to, so we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the 6th week. By the time we got to that 6th week, I was done. Like I was well on my way to burnout. I'm very introverted, and if you're an introverted mom homeschooling children, several children, some of whom are very extroverted, some of whom are very loud all the time, then you're going to want to protect your energy and kind of your sanity. And just the truth is, I needed some downtime. So I need time to recover and recoup, and so that I can continue on for the rest of the school year. So instead of 6 weeks and then a week off, I do 5 weeks and a week off, because I found that by the time I got to that 6th week, I was done. The first year that we tried this, I did do the 6 weeks, but I struggled that year. And so the next year I was like, you know what, let me see how many days I get of schoolwork I get, how many days of schoolwork I get, this number right here, if we do 5 weeks on and then 1 week off. And I found that we have more than enough. And so with the year-round schooling, and so that's why I do 5 weeks on, 1 week off. Now, here's the thing. That week isn't technically off from my kids. It's really off from me. For my kids, they still do some schoolwork that week. Usually, sometimes that's when we'll do a field trip, or fun things. We might go somewhere. But I found that when we took that week off, it's just like taking the summer off. They didn't have the structure they needed, and so things were rough. They needed structure. There's different ways you can add structure in during time off. You can say, every day I need you guys to read something, to create something, to play a game. And I've done that in the past, where instead of giving them schoolwork, I gave them certain types of activities to do during the day. You can schedule your day. We have different blocks of time. Let's have game time and reading time in the morning, and then go outside, and then we'll come back in and do something else, or go somewhere. So you can do that. But I also found that week off was also a good time for them to approach subjects in a non-parent intensive, more fun way. So for example, for grammar, instead of doing typical grammar like a workbook that week, they might, instead of doing it like every day, they might do grammar twice that week and do it with Mad Libs. For spelling, they might do crossword puzzles. For math, instead of doing a math worksheet, they might play a math game. So it made me like factor in, able to put into our planner, into the calendar, so that it would actually happen, the more fun activities. Or that could be a week that, like, my oldest was doing Minecraft science last year. So for that week, normally he would just do that like 2 or 3 times a week. And so for that week, he might do it every day or 4 times a week, and really be able to spend time on his science, on his Minecraft builds for science. So that's the way I approach that now. So how I do this here in the planner, if you have a paper planner, you're just going to you can make a note on those weeks and then skip them for your regular schoolwork. And then just erase and add things in if you need to. For me, what I do is I mark all of them. So during the school year, you see all these, like, that's just a vacation. But you'll see weeks off. And then when I get close to that week, or like the week before, or maybe 2 weeks before, I start planning for it. So what I'll do, let me X out of here so you can see how that looks. On the planner, here's that week off. You see it says no school. I didn't put that there. That was because that was marked off. Those days were marked off with an X. So Homeschool Planet added that there for me. And there's no classes. But that's not where I want to go. I want to go over here. If I go back to here and add those days back in, and so see that changes the number of school days I have, then it puts all those subjects back in there, depending on how I set up those subjects, which we'll talk about in a later video. Puts all those subjects back in there, but with nothing, like the schoolwork that they still had done, I still had planned for the week before, and the week after is still there. It doesn't move those. So then what I do is I go by subject. I think, okay, do I want him doing morning work during this easy week? Yes, I do, because that's like their calendaring stuff. It's easy stuff. It doesn't take long. So for, like, in this case, I would just see how assignments for this day, these days, it's empty. I can put what I want in there. So in this case, I would just say eliminate gaps, so it moves everything up. And so look, now we got schoolwork there. For some, like reading, normally I do Hooked on Phonics with him and another book, a book from a reading list. But for that easy week, I might put in here, I'll just type in, independent reading. And so where I expect him to read something every day. And there you go, that's there. But for something like writing, going through this workbook, I don't think I really want him to do writing that day. I could put in here something like writing in a journal, or I might just choose a couple of days and say, well, maybe Tuesday and Thursday he'll write something from a fun, writing prompt. Like if I made a robot, what kind of robot would I make? Something fun that speaks to his soul and get his creative juices flowing. So then I could just say change schedule, add or remove individual days. So I could say, well, instead of doing writing all this week, I'll just have him, I'll get rid of these days or these days, and then he'll just do it on these other days, and then I can type in what I want there. Or I could just say, you know what, I don't want him doing writing at all. We don't need to cover writing that week, so I can just X that out completely and then get rid of writing. So see, that's how I handle that easy week, and how I do it in Homeschool Planet, where for that week I decide what they're going to do, what subjects they're going to cover, and just handle it on a subject by subject, kid by kid basis. So while I try to do most of my planning up front for the year up front, for those easy weeks, I try to make those decisions closer to the easy week. So there's still some planning I have to do, but you see how quick and easy that is with Homeschool Planet. It doesn't take much. I usually just do it during the day while I'm waiting for someone to finish something. So that's how I handle that. So think about, as a recap, for your school year, how are you going to tackle your school year? When are you going to start your school year? When are you going to end your schoolwork? What kind of days off are you going to have? If you need a certain number of days of attendance, do you have enough based on the decisions you've made? So those are things to think about for your planning. Then once you've made those decisions about your year, then you'll need to go into your subjects. And before you can get in here and start, or your paper planner, start writing in your subjects and how your lesson plans are going to lay out for each subject, you'll need to do some pre-planning for that, which I will cover in the next video. So thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you, and come on back for my next video where I go into the pre-planning required for lesson planning. Thank you. I will see you then. Bye-bye.